let's get things started. My name is Matthew Glezos. I'm one of the co-founders of Toronto DAO. I've got a very special guest for you this week. We've got Kadim from Karrier One. He's one of the co-founders. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, and I appreciate you guys having me. You guys are doing some great things for the crypto community and the Web3 space. Me actually being from Toronto, I appreciate you guys even more because you guys are just bringing some of that attention into the space that I feel every city needs, and just having that representation in Toronto is great. So thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, this is it's exciting stuff. It's kind of weird where I feel like things are starting to pick up really fast lately. And you should have seen our earlier spaces when we were just getting things started. It was like, hey, how's it going? Good, how are you? But now, we've got guests, we've got huge events coming up. Speaking which, I just want to get this out of the way before we get into the questions. Next Wednesday, 6 days away, we have our event coming up with SwePlay. It's at the same place as last time. For those who are unaware of what SwePlay is, it is their portable gaming deck, similar to the Steam Deck. It's trying to get more people on Web3. Sui is heavily involved in the gaming ecosystem, and for those who are big into gaming, I think this is something you can't miss. I think they're really trying to bridge that gap between traditional and Web3 gamers, and the Sui Play is a great way to do that. So there's going to be some non-alcoholic beverages and food, but most importantly, you get to see what the Sui Play is all about. So make sure to register. Space is limited, and we can't wait to see you all there. So with that being said, Kadim, why don't you start us off with telling us about Carrier One?
Sweet. Okay, let's do so. So, like I was mentioning, my name's Kadim Trotman. I'm co-founder and lead of marketing over at Karrier One. So, what Karrier One essentially is, we're a decentralized telecommunication-based company focused in the DePIN atmosphere. For anyone who's not familiar with DePIN, it's basically a shorter version acronym of decentralized physical infrastructure. So, over at Karrier One, we basically have three major rollouts that we've already initiated. First being our CBRS macro cells that are actually able to power your communities. What that entails is these communities are able to have access to your calling, voice, text, and data. We've already deployed in some of North America's largest Indigenous communities, Six Nations Reserve being Canada's largest Indigenous community. Our secondary rollout would be our Wi-Fi offloading devices. So same similar infrastructure and the same similar reward structure is between the two devices. Our Wi-Fi offloading devices, for anyone who's not aware of what Wi-Fi offloading is, basically what it would entail is if we're in high congested areas or maybe areas where the data service is not as great, our devices will be able to offload. So essentially provide stronger services to where, let's say you're walking on the street and you're on a beachfront and your data on your phone isn't working the greatest, but you have one of our Wi-Fi offloading devices deployed. That data is going to now shift onto these devices, powering your phone and essentially giving your phone a better service connection. And then the owners and the deployers of these devices are rewarded in our cone token. So this same infrastructure and the same play goes towards basically all of our devices that we deploy and node operators. And then finally, we have what we call our KNS, our carrier number system. What that entails is you're going to have your SIM swap protection. The same way you would be able to send and receive funds through a crypto wallet, you're going to be able to do that through a phone number, kind of similar to like your Zells and your Cash App, but more crypto based. And then also be able to just essentially access our dashboards, be able to own your own eSIM, and have that just Web3 digital identity all through a phone number. So those are like the main rollouts for Carrier One. Essentially, like I mentioned, deep in project with sort of a slight play and twist on DeFi.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. So the thing that caught my attention on your website was like and you briefly mentioned this in your intro. You mentioned those who are unbanked and those who are unstable internet connection. As you're aware, or many are aware, the internet in Canada, outside of the major cities, is pretty bad. Um, I went, I my family used to have a cottage, and even though it was like 2 blocks away from like the major road that did have internet, um, like Rogers, Bell, none of the big ones provided internet there. And it's even worse when you're in some of these more remote communities. Also, when I was in Colombia, you know, I, God help you if you wanted internet in some of these more rural areas. Places like Bogota and Medellin, perfect. But yeah, like these farms, you'd be lucky to have like 1 megabit per second on your phone, and that was very unreliable. So, how does Carrier One plan to help out these communities?
Yeah, no, awesome. And I'm glad you actually brought that to attention. So I'd love to touch on that point. So, firstly, the reason why a lot of us have those similar problems when we do visit these areas is because a lot of the major network operators, so us being Canadian, we're going to have your Rogers, your Telus, your Bell. It's very costly for them to go out and deploy these 5G towers in areas where they're not generating as much usage. They like to deploy, if you notice, if you're ever driving off a highway in a highly populated area, you're going to notice a 5G tower, probably with a bunch of different little antennas on these towers. And the reasoning for that is because, like I mentioned, they focus a lot more on high densification, high traffic, because essentially that's what brings them the usage that they're looking to generate money through these networks. The rural areas are more neglected because not as many people go and travel to these areas. The operators don't generate as much money, and it costs them millions, if not billions, to go and set up these 5G towers. So their main focus isn't to go to areas where they're not generating usage. Now, with DePIN infrastructure and DePIN technology, this same infrastructure now could apply to your everyday user, whether it's me, you, someone interested in our hardware. Instead of going and spending millions and billions of dollars to deploy these 5G towers, you could deploy that same carrier grade network, whether that's at your house, a smaller community. And when I say carrier grade, that's actually some of the advantages that Carrier One faces opposed to some of your other DPIN telecom infrastructure projects. And with that being said, we already have major operators roaming on our network, like your T-Mobiles. We have a announcement going out with AT&T towards the end of this month, and that infrastructure that we provide allows these operators to roam on our network. So basically, let's say we had this infrastructure deployed in your rural area, whether it's Medellin, Colombia. These operators are now going to generate usage that and money that they would have never seen since their 5G towers aren't there. So major operators do love this infrastructure and this play because they're basically seeing a dollar on a dollar that they would have never seen in the first place. So one of our big missions at Carrier One, like you asked, connecting the unconnected, bringing the unbanked, and with that being said, it's just providing connectivity to these rural and less fortunate communities. Like I mentioned before, prior, our main initial rollout was to really attack and approach the Indigenous ones because them in specific, they're neglected a lot when it comes to their connectivity and just their basic usages that they are definitely entailed to. It's important for schooling, it's important for healthcare, and just to have your basic data that I feel like everyone is entailed to. So yeah, that's kind of the problems that we face that a lot of people face when they travel to these areas that Carrier One is looking to solve.
So, in places that have already not great internets, like how do you make it better based on the existing infrastructure?
So the great thing is it's more of just having a connection as opposed to a strong one because it's offloading. So it's basically acts as an extension of a provider. So with that being said, picture it as, let's say, use Medellin back to the example. As long as there is connectivity, Um, the same way you could sometimes even they used to have those little adapters that you could plug even into your laptop to just amplify that signal. It's kind of the same sense. You just need a power source essentially of Wi-Fi, and these devices are an extension that will actually amplify the connection because they're providing their own Wi-Fi essentially. So that's what I say when I meant carrier grade hardware, which a lot of other projects struggled with, is their devices that they were providing. They were low RAN devices. They weren't able to generate real usage, and then that's where the problem is when it comes to those type of devices where people aren't actually able to generate and build out and sustain a real network. So that's a great thing with some of the providers we're using. EdgeCore, they've been great to us, and they're really good when it comes to just having that actual Wi-Fi extension.
All right, that's really cool. So you have two devices, as you mentioned, the cellular and the Wi-Fi. If I'm on, your website browsing, who should buy which device? Like, what do you recommend?
So we like the reason we offer the different ones, and the reasoning for that is more just a price point and affordability. And then also your use case behind it. So let's use back to the indigenous communities as an example. They went and they still had a tower that they had rights to. So we deployed our macro cells there, much more costly, but much more powerful. So instead of just powering, for instance, a street or a beachfront, some of those are able to power as up to even a 10-kilometer radius. So those, like I mentioned, a lot more pricey, more for your use case and your goal behind it. Let's say someone is, back home from a foreign country and they want to go and power some of their members back there. They might want to explore our macro cells and be able to actually power and sustain a full community. Now, as opposed to something like our Wi-Fi offloading devices, those are a lot more community driven when it comes to Web3, more affordable, and basically to go and sustain and build out the network at a larger pace, more geared to Wi-Fi. You're not going to be able to use that, for instance, as your calling and text. It's not going to power that, but they will be able to power any form of data transactions, and then also and transmitting. And then also, with that being said, these devices, whether it's through calling, text, voice, data, you're going to be able to pick and choose which ones you want. And then some are also running off what you would call spectrum. Spectrum is basically the wavelength that allows us to interact with one another. So let's say it's a government official that wants to deploy these devices in their city or their community. Government officials more times are going to have either licensed spectrum or spectrum ownership of their own. And with that being said, the way the distribution model works is a portion of the reward structure is going to the deployer, a portion is going to the Carrier One ecosystem, and a portion is going to the spectrum owner or donor. So in many cases where a government might be the owner of the spectrum, they're going to actually get paid out on a whole nother front because they're actually the owners of the spectrum. So these are kind of some of the stipulations that you want to see that you're faced with, wherever you're able to capitalize, and then you can manage it on that front. So the great thing is we do also have licensed spectrum. One thing that I could give the America as an advantage is they have a spectrum called CBRS, which basically allows almost any operator to go out and create their own network. CBRS is the name of the spectrum that allows people to be able to communicate with one another. And then you're going to have all different forms of bandwidths. You're going to have your band 53, your band 41, your band 40, 49. And these are all different forms of spectrum that allow us to communicate with one another.
That's really cool. Do you have a cost estimate for what each one costs? You said the
Mhm.
one was more expensive than the other.
Yep. So our on the cheaper end, for instance, our Wi-Fi offloading devices, those are going to range between roughly to 230, $250 US. And then you can range all the way up to as large as $10,000 for our macro cells. So we have different devices that we do offer, but just to put it in perspective, it is a large price range depending on what the user is looking to do.
Can you give me an example of what a $10,000 one would do compared to like the Wi-Fi 250? Just to give it, just so we can get an idea of the extremes.
Yeah, so I mean, like I briefly touched on, the $10,000 ones will be able to power a very large portion. You're looking at least a 10-kilometer radius, and then also able to provide your calling, your voice, your text, and data. So they'll actually be able to sustain all of those, and not just that, they actually latch onto different spectrums. The user of the whoever goes out and deploys those, they're either going to have spectrum there or be issued through spectrum that we either own or license ourselves. As opposed to your Wi-Fi offloading devices, those are strictly only for data. and those don't require any form of spectrum. They're a lot more plug and play. They don't really require, for instance, someone going out and actually installing for them. It's realistically, you just have an internet connection, you plug it in, make sure it's powered up, and you're good to go. And you'll be able to access your dashboards. You'll be able to see all the usage that's going through and in and out the network, and also track your reward structure through these dashboards after deployed.
And are people going to be how can people pay for this? Like crypto, fiat, credit card?
Yep, we accept both. It's great because we're actually doing our store. We ran a giveaway for some of our Wi-Fi offloading devices. We've sold and deployed our major macro devices as well, but we're actually launching our store later this evening, where people will be able to go and purchase a device of their choice. And then, yeah, with that being said, crypto, credit card, fiat, we try to make it as easy as possible for the user. So yes, you are able to purchase in any one of those fronts.
Yeah, that's good because I remember Helium when you could only do it with the USDC or Tether, one of the two. And I saw people providing services where they would like, I can't remember what it cost, but let's say it's 5. They would charge 6 and keep the 100 as like their service of how I can transfer your money to crypto. So I was like, that's kind of Helium shouldn't have done that. So it's cool that you actually do take fiat for those who are not crypto friendly. Here at Toronto DAO, we're trying to embrace everyone. So not everyone knows how to do crypto yet.
I agreed, and that is a big mission over at Carrier One is really bridging that Web 2 into Web 3. As much as I'm a Web 3 maxi and love Web 3, at the end of the day, it is still a secluded space to where, on the grand scheme, overall, on a global front, it's very still minuscule towards your Web 2 users. So that's a real big mission over at Carrier One is bringing Web 2 users into Web 3, and this is kind of why we actually uh, even brought up the idea of our KNS feature is how are we going to get those users into the Web3 and onto our ecosystem? And we feel some of the products and services that we're enrolling are great ways to do so.
And so let's role play for a bit. I'm back in that small town in Medellin. I
Yeah.
want to use Carrier One. It's set up there. What do I do?
So are you a deployer or are you just attendee going for a stroll?
I'm just a guy with this phone who has shitty internet.
Okay, so let's say you're in Medellin and you're there at your phone. Yeah, shitty internet. You don't really have access to a bunch. It's moving super slow. In a case where someone does have our devices deployed, that would not be the case because, like I mentioned, it's more of an extension to Wi-Fi. So it provides that stronger service to help make your phone move a little faster. So I think I'm kind of answering your question there. Please let me know if I'm not. What exactly?
I guess like do I have to do anything? Do I need to have the tokens? Do I need to pick your network?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So no, very user friendly, and that's another reason why we like to enroll these devices and we make sure they're properly installed on our front. So with that being said, the Carrier One ecosystem, we're able to see when a device is online or offline. And then same with thing with the deployer and the owner of these devices. You're gonna have access to the Carrier One dashboards where you'll be able to know if your device is on or offline. And this is for the owners. So as for a regular person just walking around with their phone, they actually don't have to do anything. They don't have to switch over any networks. It automatically does that. Very seamless. That was our goal for Carrier One. How do we make this as easy and seamless as possible for everybody? So yeah, to answer your question, there's absolutely nothing you would have to do as a person just going out for a stroll in Medellin.
That's really cool. Like you said, you're trying to bridge the web too, and I think that's a vital step that you've already thought of. Um, so uh, when do you expect these devices to be available? I know you said your websites is going up, but are these pre-orders or can I, tonight can I buy it and it's going to be shipped within a few days?
Yep. So depending on the regions people are in, the shipping varies on how long it'll actually take to get to them. But yeah, as of today, fully functional, fully purchasable. We actually just sent out some. We ran a giveaway for, so we have an early adopter Carrier One community that's been with us for basically since we launched and went public. And they were the first ones that we kind of honored a chance to win one of these devices. So they're actually already going to have some in their hands very shortly. But yep, as of today, every and everyday user will be able to go purchase one of these devices. Another thing though that we are actually focused on is making sure that the devices are, especially for the first initial rollout, we're really focused on making sure that people who we call them deployers, but essentially what a deployer is just someone who's interested in strategically setting up these devices and purchasing them more on a larger scale. So that kind of is our focus because a lot of times, a lot of these other DePIN projects have faced, they go out and they deploy a bunch of devices and the devices don't generate usage, or they're getting rewarded for a dead network. So something we're looking to do is strategically deploy these devices so that it doesn't dramatically affect the values of our token, and that's a lot of a lot of difficulties that some of these other projects face that fortunately enough we got to learn without making those mistakes. So this time around we're looking to do this way more strategically on that front and make sure everything's good for our users and our whole ecosystem.
And so let's switch gears. You're on the SWE network. SWE has been, we've been working with SWE for the past few months now. It's been a lot of fun working with them. They've been very helpful with our goal. We've hosted two events. Next week will be our third event, and I believe we have a fourth event coming up in April. Um, so what led you to I'm going to start over. What led you to deploy this on the Swede network? I don't know why my tongue keeps getting tied up there.
No problem, man. Okay, so great question actually. So Sweet has been great. I noticed a lot of the projects that are building on Sweet all have kind of the same response. The tech is great. So two major components as opposed to, because I could list off a bunch, but let's get down to the two major components. So once we actually made a strategic investment in Carrier One, where they're actually more deeply rooted as partners into Carrier One. So that was great. Glad they believed in us. Glad they saw the vision. And then two, just the way Swee's tech works is great for Carrier One. Like I mentioned, we have reward structures. We're sending and receiving funds via phone number, and you want this to be one seamless and two cost efficient. And when it comes to Swee's fees and just gas fees and how it works within the Sweet ecosystem, great for Carrier One, what we're building. For instance, Ethereum at first was the main chain that a lot of people look to because it was EVM, it's compatible with a lot of other projects, but something that would make it hard for us to build on a platform like Ethereum as an example. If someone is looking to send and receive funds or be rewarded, if the gas fees and eat up majority of the people's rewards, or if the gas fees are going to eat up majority of the people's funds when they're sending and receiving, that really wouldn't be as efficient and as effective for what we're building over at Carrier One. So with that being said, Sui I feel is actually a great fit for us, perfect for what we're trying to build out, and it just makes things a lot easier and a lot more seamless on that front.
Yeah, and I think the community has really started to explode. Like I know Aptos, like they were competing with each other, and Aptos kind of bought their community with that airdrop, and I feel like it's slowing down. I don't really know anybody building on Aptos. Not to be a hater, that's just my observation, but I've seen tons of people who got no airdrops be super excited about this network, this blockchain. So, it's got a great organic following, and you can't, technology aside, community is almost as important, right? Because if you build something amazing and no one hears about you, who cares?
For sure. Yeah, no, I agree. You nailed it on the head right there, man. I mean, that's another thing that we've just so happy that we chose to work with Sweet because all down to even their community, super supportive. They all love the tech. They love what Sweet's trying to build. And a lot of the projects on Sweet people are loving. I know Walrus has just recently launched some great news, some great things Walrus is doing as well, building a lot of traction and bringing a lot of that attention into the Sweet ecosystem. And that's essentially what we need. We need great projects to be building on Sweet, bringing us that TVL, that volume, and just all the eyes that Sweet really deserves.
So, you did mention the KNS. Is there anything more you'd like to talk about in with regards to that that you haven't brought up?
Not as yet, other than actually 2 days ago we launched our beta version. So our KNS is actually open for users right now to go in and sign up with. It is our beta version, not our full version. So we have a lot more features that we're going to enroll for the people. But as of right now, yep, it's all over our socials. If you just go to dashboard.carrier.one, you're able to sign up via phone number, via email. We have a few different options there that we give people so that they're able to make it. Like I mentioned, one of our missions is really to bring the Web 2 users into Web 3. And after signing up, you'll be able to connect a wallet if you'd like, and you'll be able to have that whole integration. We make it basically as simple as possible so that even someone who isn't as familiar with crypto can now essentially use a wallet. Even incorporating your wallet into our dashboards, we made it as seamless and simple as possible, just for those users who haven't integrated or haven't maneuvered with that Web3 system yet.
Awesome. Can't wait to try that out myself. Is there anything that we need other than just do we need a Sweet Wallet, just an account, a Google account, or
Yep, Google account, email works fine. You don't even need a Sweet Wallet yet. You could even make that afterwards and link a wallet. But yeah, to sign up to our dashboards, you don't even have to be a Web3 user as of yet. You can literally just punch in your phone number. You're going to receive a verification code. You put the verification code in like you would for some of the other platforms, and you're good to go. And then you'll see all the settings that we have within the dashboard.
that's great. That's great. This has all been very informative. DePIN, as you mentioned, it's really growing in popularity. I feel like it's flooded with a lot of these free to earn ones where you don't need a device, which I don't even really understand why they're doing it. But this is obviously not the case with you guys. And like I said, my experience being in these remote communities, um, even like my godson's Bolivian, and so I remember people would have to book online meetings, like a actual physical room, because the internet was not strong enough for multiple meetings, and they were like, "Okay, everyone get off, like literally get off the internet. Like, don't just have it on the background. Take your computer and disconnect, because we have an important meeting coming up." So I can't wait to see not just like the device, but the actual network being rolled out and the people that you're gonna serve.
No,
But
I appreciate it.
is there anything else you'd like to talk about that we haven't covered?
Not much other than I know we have our TGE coming up within the start of May, May 1st. We're actually one of the major sponsors at Sweet Basecamp.
Ooh.
Sweet Basecamp is going to be held over at Token 2049 this year throughout the ending of April into May in Dubai. So we're really excited for that. Big things happening, very busy but exciting times. For me, especially staying busy is really exciting. It keeps me going. So, with that being said, yeah, TGE is a really important part of any Web3 project. So, this next month is going to be very exciting. Lots of news we're enrolling. Like I mentioned before, maybe some alpha for the attendees. We have a TextPlus MOU that's going out on Tuesday. So, basically, we're bringing about 3 million users from TextPlus into our ecosystem. And then, like I mentioned too, we also have a large AT&T announcement going out as well, just basically a joint PR where they're going to be one of our major roaming partners, signing our roaming agreements with them. And then just a lot of collaborations, especially with a lot of different Suite projects leading into TGE, just bringing a lot of the Suite ecosystem, bringing a lot of that attention onto Carrier One. And they've been super supportive. They're very excited to see this as well. So yeah, it's an exciting time, man.
Yeah, and be sure to follow Carrier One's account because that's where they're going to put these exciting announcements. I'm also super jealous you're getting to go to Sweet Base Camp. I am not going to be attending, but fingers crossed for future events for myself. But yeah, this has been fantastic. Before I end it, we do have a Zeely campaign where we reward people who um, regularly attend our meetings or our Twitter spaces. I'm not very creative with the codes. I've just put it as mobile, no caps. Hopefully, I can become more creative in the future. But I'd just like to thank Kadim for joining us. Great space. Be sure to look out on their website. Do you have an estimate time, local time, for when that site goes live?
Roughly 5 p.m. Eastern.
All right, a few hours from now. So
Yeah.
be sure to check that website out. I know I am. This has been Matthew with Toronto DAO. I hope everyone has a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you all at our Swe Play event this coming Wednesday.
Awesome. And I'm going to try to make sure I'm in attendance too. Looking
Oh,
forward to it, man.
perfect, perfect. Looking forward to seeing you there. Take care, everyone.
Okay, guys. Thanks for having me. Take care.